never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Let's go ahead and kick off another week by talking about wrestling. First, I'm going to tell you where I'll be this upcoming Saturday night. 1200 Chivers Avenue in Buckhead, Georgia. Got to Be Rolling and Javi's Roofing present Georgia Championship Wrestling Parade of Champions. Doors will open at 6:05 Saturday night, and the show will start at 7 o'clock. Already announced for the show, the Georgia Heavyweight Championship will be on the line. Hunter James versus Terry Lawler. We're also going to have Big Andy versus Jeter in a rematch because they wrestled a couple of months ago at the Got to Be Rolling Event Center at 1200 Chivers Avenue. And also we're going to have the Grapplers versus the Nelms brothers for the GCW Tag Team Championships. Also in action, we'll see Brandon Cage. We'll see Kyle Phillips. We'll see Jay Shaw. All those guys and more will be in action Saturday night, 1200 Chivers Avenue in Buckhead, Georgia at the Got to Be Rolling Event Center as Got to Be Rolling and Javi's Roofing present Parade of Champions. And now let's go ahead and talk about, just in case you have not heard, all of the firings that WWE had. Really, it's been over the past about 3 weeks, but the first few hundred that they fired were all basically behind-the-scenes people. So if I told you any of them's name, you wouldn't know who they are. But on Thursday, they started releasing actual wrestlers, and that took place Thursday and Friday, and then there was one more on Saturday. They may be done, they may not, but as I read off these names, so far there's 24. Some of them you will know, some of them you won't know. Some of them are people that are on TV on a regular basis but not doing a whole lot. And then some of them are people that have only been on TV once or twice. And then some of them are on there, once every couple of months, but they're just not doing a whole lot. But none of them are really main event people. Really only one I would consider as a mid-carder. The rest of them are either just useless or nobodies. But people are surprised by it. Honestly, I do not know why, because we know the WWE got sold and the sale became official a couple of weeks ago. And if you're above the age of 15, then you know anytime a company gets sold no matter what kind of company it is, when the new company buys it and takes over, and they officially take over, they always fire either everybody or they fire most of the people so they can try to save money and then bring in later on the ones they want to bring in. So honestly, I'm not surprised by it, especially considering WWE, even when it was themselves, every couple of years they would go through a firing spree and they would fire, 55, 60 people. So for a separate company to come in and do it, it doesn't surprise me. But in case you have not heard, so far we've got Dolph Ziggler, Elias, and honestly, Dolph Ziggler hasn't been used on a regular basis in at least 5 years. Elias hasn't been on TV in 3 or 4 months. His contract ran out, I believe, back in July. And before his contract ran out, there was already rumors that they were not going to renew his contract. And then we've got Mustafa Ali, or as they like to pronounce it, Mustafa Ali. He had been pushed down to NXT, and he was on there on a regular basis, but he still wasn't doing a whole lot. Shelton Benjamin, Top Dollar, Riddick Moss, Emma, and in case you do not know, those two are actually a couple in real life. I believe they're engaged to get married either late this year, early next year. But at one time, Riddick Moss started going by Madcap Moss. Then he went back to Riddick, but he hasn't done a whole lot of anything in 6 months. Aaliyah, Rick Boogs, Quincy Elliott, who I believe was actually on NXT a total of 1 time, and that's been 8 or 9 months ago. Bryson Montana, Dana Brooke, Mansoor and Mace, who they were at the time of their firings using them in the maximum male models, and they had changed the pronunciations to make them sound more sexual to Mansoor and Masse, but they were Mansoor and Mace. Shanky, Dabakato, Ulyssa Leon, Daniel MacArthur, Kevin Ventura Cortez, Alexis Gray, Brooklyn Barlow, Akimen Hero, Abule Abadi Fitzgerald, and then the one that probably everybody's going to know is Matt Riddle, and he's the one that I said earlier was a mid-card guy. Really, he never was a main event guy. He never threatened for a world championship, and to me, if you don't threaten for a world championship, you're not a main eventer, you're a mid-card guy. I think he had potential to be a main event guy, but never made it. But the only one that actually went ahead and asked for a release was Mustafa Ali. He was going to become a free agent in about April, I believe, of next year, and he had already decided he wasn't going to resign, so he went ahead and just told the new people, hey, if you want to go ahead and let me go, I'm okay with it. But the rest of them, it was strictly 100% the idea of Endeavor. Nothing to do with Vince, nothing to do with Triple H. It was all strictly Endeavor. They decided to let all these people go. But a lot of these people, like Daniel MacArthur, Kevin Ventura Cortez, Alexis Gray, Brooklyn Barlow, Akimen Hero, Abule Abadi Fitzgerald, Bryson Montana, unless you read wrestling news constantly, you have no idea who any of these people are. And then with people like Dolph Ziggler and Shelton Benjamin and Top Dollar, unless you watch Raw and SmackDown every single week, you're not going to see them because they're only on there sporadically. And to me, if you're going to come in, take over the company, and you're going to try to save money, it only makes sense to get rid of people that you have no intentions of using. The only one that probably comes as a surprise to most people is Matt Riddle, because he was only 37, and even though he was only a mid-card guy there for a while, when him and Randy Orton were a tag team, he was on Raw every single week. And then after Randy got hurt, he still was on TV quite frequently. He just never did a whole lot. And I believe the reason why Matt Riddle got fired is because he just burned too many bridges. He made the company look bad too many times. First, he got suspended for drugs, and they no longer test for marijuana. So you know if you fail a drug test, it's got to be methamphetamine, crack, cocaine, something. So he had to be suspended, and he had to go to rehab. The rehab was supposed to be about 3 months. It took him about 4.5 months. He was gone for a long time for that. And then word came out that he was cheating on his, at the time, wife with the porn star. In this day and time with social media like it is and Google like it is, wrestling fans see all this stuff and they hear all this stuff, and you make the company look bad when you're doing all this stuff. And there's been a word for a long time now that most people backstage did not like Matt Riddle, because the Matt Riddle you see on TV, that's not a character. That's who Matt Riddle is. And he was just so obnoxious and so passive aggressive that most people didn't like him. But Vince McMahon liked him because Vince thought he was real. What you saw was not fake. It was not a character. It's who Matt Riddle was. So Vince liked him because Vince knew that when you seen Matt Riddle, he was always going to be Matt Riddle. If you wanted the truth, you asked Matt Riddle. If you wanted honest answers, you asked Matt Riddle. That's who he was. So Vince liked him because he was real, but most people backstage didn't like him. And then he got in trouble for an airport incident, and he has not been on TV since then. So it seemed like every time they started using him, he did something else stupid to make himself and the company look bad. So I understand why they did it. But to a lot of people, you look at that and say, man, Matt Riddle, he was on TV on a regular basis. And he was when he wasn't in trouble for something he had done behind the scenes. I've always been a huge fan of Dolph Ziggler. I always have. I've always liked him. But to me, even though he's a great wrestler, if you're not going to use him, there's no point in keeping him around. But he's been a stand-up comedian now for about 5 years or longer. So maybe he just needs to be a full-time comedian. He's got a brother that wrestles on occasion for AEW. Maybe he just needs to go and wrestle with his brother. And speaking of WWE, this upcoming Saturday night, we're going to have NXT No Mercy at the Mechanics Bank Arena in Bakersfield, California. Now, so far, there's been 4 matches assigned. Now, we know they're going to add at least 2 more. So make sure you watch NXT tomorrow night to find out what all the matches will be. But so far, we have Noam Dar versus either Butch or Joe Coffey for the Heritage Cup. And we'll find out in NXT whether it will be Butch or Joe Coffey tomorrow night. Then we're going to have Carmelo Hayes versus Ilya Dragunov in a singles match for the NXT Championship. Braun Breaker versus Baron Corbin. And Becky Lynch versus Tiffany Stratton in an Extreme Rules match for the NXT Women's Championship. Those 4 matches are already official. And as I said, we'll have at least 2 more added by the time Saturday gets here. They might announce them tomorrow night, and they might make us wait till Saturday, but there's definitely going to be more than 4 matches. Of course, NXT No Mercy used to be WWE No Mercy, but NXT started using that name. But it has been a WWE Premium Live event for quite a while now. They just decided to make it an NXT Premium Live event instead of WWE. But that'll take place Saturday night at the Mechanics Bank Arena in Bakersfield, California. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Homes for our troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. And if you want to hear me give more details and more opinions about all the releases, make sure you tune in to my podcast that I'll be doing tonight, because I do it each and every Monday night with my man JJ on our Wrestling and Racing podcast, and I look forward to that as I always do. If you have any early thoughts on Raw tonight, please feel free to let me know. In case you have not heard, SmackDown is moving to USA starting next year, so word has already came down that Raw will no longer be on USA. I guess they don't want to spend over $5 billion in total, which is what they would spend for a 5-year deal for Raw and a 5-year deal for SmackDown. That is a lot of money for USA to fork out. So I guess since SmackDown is moving to USA, they have decided to quit carrying Raw, which to me right now, between Raw and SmackDown, I think SmackDown is a whole lot better show. It's not near as drug out. It's got better storytelling. It has better matches. To me, SmackDown's better than Raw. Has been for over a year, and it's not even close. And they're also thinking about moving Raw off of Mondays, because during football season, the TV ratings drop because it gets completely, totally destroyed by the NFL. And with the popularity of football growing bigger and bigger every year, and the popularity of wrestling going down every year, those TV ratings have never been good for Raw, but they continue to get further and further apart every year because of the popularity of football and because of the popularity of wrestling is going down. It just gets worse every year. So we got to sit back and wait probably until about the middle of next year before we find out what channel and what night Raw will actually be on. I know there are some rumors that it's going to become a streaming show on one of these streaming platforms. If that is the case, I'll no longer watch it. I'm not paying to watch wrestling. There's too much free wrestling on TV. I'm not paying extra money to watch Raw on a weekly basis. Sorry, I'm just not going to do it. Some folk might. I'm not one of those folk. At one time, the streaming services were great, and that's why so many people were cutting back on cable and satellite, because you had all the streaming services. But now the cost of the streaming services continues to go up. So now by the time you pay for 5 or 6 streaming services, you're better off just sticking with cable or satellite, because you're going to pay $15 for this one, $10 for this one, $12 for this one, $8 for this one, $5 for this one. You might as well just stick with cable or satellite. But at one time it was cheaper to go with a streaming service. But there's just too much free wrestling on TV. I'm not paying extra money to watch Raw every week. Sorry, I'm just not going to do it. So if it does go to one of those streaming platforms, I'll be watching SmackDown, I'll be watching NXT, I'll be watching AEW. I won't be watching Raw. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What do you call a pudgy psychic? A fortune teller. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.